Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my busy little shop. On today's episode of What's My Workbench, I've got a few things I'm working on. I've got, as you can see, a gunslinger pattern belt I'm making here. This is a repeat order. The gentleman actually purchased a brown gunslinger belt, I guess 2 years ago, and says he needed a black belt, and I laid out some belts for him to look at, and he's like, you know what, I just want another gunslinger, but I want it in black. So I'm working on that today, but I thought I had a couple of questions on my Saturday video, and the main question I think was people wanted to know what direction I ended up going with on the project. So this is the project here. I'll put a link in the description of the video for this video here. But I thought I would bring you along on that. And then also, I had a few questions here that people have asked me, and I thought maybe I'd address some of those. One of them, I had someone just today. Today's the last day of September, so you're seeing this in October, so happy October. But they said that they had a NP4, had an error code that they had questions on. And I tell you what, I've been fortunate. My Cobra NP4 skiver from the Leather Machine Company, I've not had any error codes. Now, I'll go turn it on and I'll have one there. But he didn't include that, or I would have tried to do a little bit of research on it. But I would say that on Facebook, there's, I think it's listed really as Cobra Sewing Machines, but Cobra Equipment, it's a Facebook group. And you can go over there, you can type in, a lot of times people will be able to answer your question there. But really, I've found that the staff at the Leather Machine Company is very helpful. So if you just do a Google search, you'll come up with the phone number for the Leather Machine Company. And you can find probably the answer to your question there. I'll put a link in the description of the video for the Leather Machine Company as well. So if you want to just go straight to there. So one of the things that I've had questions on, though, that I thought I would answer is the Cobra 26 sewing machine. And the Cobra 26 sewing machine I've had for just a little more than 2 years, and it's done everything I've asked it to do. I've gotten too thick a leather in there before, and have the result was I got the timing off on it. It was easy enough for me to work on that and get the answer to that. And Al Bain is one of the people that has really good videos on servicing the sewing machines. But the question that I had was, did I regret buying the Class 26 sewing machine, and did I wish I'd bought the Class 4 sewing machine? And I don't. I had never have wished that once. I've had a few projects that the Class 4 would have sewn, but they were holsters that I do so few of them that are that thick that I need that sewing machine, that the last thing I wanted to do is put a bunch of work into it and then mess it up on a sewing machine. So I would say if I had the Class 4 here, I probably wouldn't have sewn that couple of holsters on there. The Cobra 26, it does really good on the thicknesses of leather that I use. So I predominantly make totes and bags, DOP kits, wallets, those types of items that I've sewn on the Leather Machine Company. I've not sewn belts on there. That's another whole topic. People don't understand why, but I like hand sewn belts. But it would sew the belts that I have very easily. The thing about the Class 4, as I understand it, some of the lighter weight projects that I sew, linings for wallets and such, it won't sew. I would need the 26. I think the 26, if you were to ask people that have a 26 and a 4, and if if you're using making similar projects as me, I think the majority of them are going to say that you'll get more use out of the 26. They may say the 20. The 20, I think that's the right number, is a one that's built into a tabletop that you sit at instead of stand at. When I first got it, I thought it would be awkward to stand and sew, but because you're using your foot to control speed and lift the needle and things like that. And I have not had any issues with it. I've got a stool here. I could use that if I was sewing it. And maybe it's because I really don't do, The sewing I do, it's great that I have it, but I don't do that much sewing to where I'm standing for, say, 8 hours a day sewing on the sewing machine. A long stint would be to spend an hour or hour and a half at that and then do something else. And a lot of times that hour and a half is spread over 8 hours, between other projects. So extremely happy with the Cobra 26. I had someone, since I was working on the belt, I thought I'd answer that. I had someone asking me, what thickness leather do I like to use for the liner? And do I use similar size or thickness for the liner and the front? And there's a bunch of schools of thought to that. Having a liner that's lightweight, say in the 3 to 4 ounce range, would be easy to trim to match up the edges on that. I've said before that for me, ideally, I would like to have an 11 ounce belt. Somewhere between 10 and 12 is what I want, but I could have an 11. If I could get 5.5 ounce leather all day long that I was happy with, then I would just buy the 5.5 ounce leather, and I would use the same thickness for the face as for the liner on the belt. And that does a couple things for me, because if I get a side of leather, it's not unusual to have a brand, or maybe there's a scar or such that mars up the front of that leather. By having both layers the same thickness, I'm able then to use that blemish as the liner. So I'll cut the whole thing, strip it all down into the 1.5-inch strips, and then I'll sort those out, and the ones with a blemish will become the liner on that belt. But with that said, I've had before where I went to buy leather, and I found lots of 8-9 leather that looked really good, and some liner leather that's 3-4. So I'm not afraid of buying that and using the lighter weight liner on that. What I do find is that if I use that lighter weight liner, I typically cut the liners a 1/4 inch wider, trim them to fit. It's harder for me, it seems, to keep that lined up. The 2 layers of 5.5 ounce, I'm pretty efficient at lining up those 2 edges when I laminate those together with contact adhesive. And then I can't remember now if it was on the last video or it was one of the last videos, I talked about stitching chisels, and that I really wanted to explore some other brands of stitching chisel. I've been using that Weaver set really since I started making belts, and it works fine. I mean, that's what I'm using here, but sometimes I don't know. I like to feel like I can maybe test some other tools and bring to you what that experience is, and maybe it helps you in deciding what it is. If you're getting started in belt making and you're not 100% sure where you want to go with it, I wouldn't be afraid of buying that Weaver set. It's done a good job for me. But there was a few people, and I was going to call some of them out, but I don't want to miss somebody there. But I had a lot of really thoughtful responses in the comment section, sharing their experience with theirs. I even had a couple people say that they went out and laminated a belt together and tried sewing like I sew, with 2 needles through there. And I know it's kind of an unorthodox way of doing it, but that's how I learned, and it's working for me. But they went through the steps to see how their chisel would work for me. And then I had a viewer reach out and offer something that's really cool, and I'll bring you the video on that coming up. But he's sending me some chisels so that I can try head-to-head some different chisels. So I had someone make a comment on that the video where I unboxed the mystery box of buckles I bought. If you missed that, I bought from Weaver. Weaver had a deal where they were closing out some of their, I'll use the term somebody else had, junk they couldn't sell. I ordered 2 boxes of the buckles, 1 of the snaps, and I tell you what, it's pretty good looking. If that's what someone thinks is junk, there is some stuff in there that I probably won't use, and I had a few people offer to take it off my hands, and hey, stay tuned, you never know. On the stuff that I don't want to use anymore, because I do want to keep things streamlined and keep things from being cluttered. But Kenny up in Canada, he sent me a note and said, man, keep things in perspective. There's not many things that you can buy that's worth anything that only costs 66 cents. And when you bought 2 of those mystery boxes, you got 1 for free. And it was $1 a piece until you went to 3 packages. So 66 cents. You're right, Kenny. Keep things in perspective. Even if I only use half of them, that's, a dollar, we'll just call it $1.30. That's a pretty good deal. So, but I thought I would bring you over here. I've got this project here, and I received the materials from the buckle guy, and we're going to take a look at this and see what's going to look best to finish up that tool holster that I made for the gentleman, and I've got to get it in the mail tomorrow. So let's get over here on the workbench. I know that's a long wrap up, answered some questions here, but let's go over to the workbench and we'll see what I've got going over here. All right, let's take a look and see what we got here. I tell you, it's crazy how this stuff goes. I ordered some materials from the buckle guy, and then I started this project like 3 days later. And when I ordered the first thing from the buckle guy, which I think is probably this one, I was just really ordering to replace some items that I knew that I was going to need. And what I typically do is I start a little list, and then when I get to the minimum order to where I get free shipping, then I place the order. Oh, I got it the other way around. Well, this is some buckles here, and these are the 1/4 inch. I'm sorry. These are the mini Chicago screws, 1/4 inch and 3/16. Oh, look at that. I got a sticker. Let's see what this other box is. But I was saying I usually keep a list going over here for different places, and I wait until I need the item or until I have enough to reach a minimum order, and I'll place the order at that time. And I needed, I felt like I needed to replace the buckles. This is the buckle that was used on the belt that matched this, the antique brass 1035 buckle. That's one of my favorite buckles at the buckle guy, is that buckle. And it's, anyway, I ordered, actually, I think I ordered 11 to reach the minimum for free shipping, but when you get to 10, you get a discount. And then I had this on my list. This is the same thing, 1 1/4 inch. I only had 1 of those left, but I needed that to get to my minimum for here. And I also got 2 spools of Tigeritza 0.08, 1 black and 1 is in the violet or purple that I use over here occasionally. So here's the dilemma. I don't know if you've seen these or not. These are the mini Chicago screws. Let me get a typical Chicago screw so that you can see the difference in the size of the Chicago screw. So this is a regular Chicago screw, and that's the mini. So you can see there's a considerable difference between those. And I don't know, I became aware of them recently, like a year ago, I think maybe they came out. And I had only purchased them in the matte nickel, I guess. I thought I had some of these when I started this project, but I didn't. So the dilemma was, do I use a Chicago screw? They are considerably more expensive. Or do I use the rivets here that I have? I call them spots because I typically are just using them decorative. And this is one of my favorites here. It's got this hammered look to it. I don't know if you can see that or not. But I use these in different colors on my belts as decoration. And I was looking before I opened that package, because I had a few people say, well, I think the double cap rivet would hold. And I do think the double cap rivet would probably hold in this case, but I'm shipping this thing to the other side of the country, and the last thing I want to do is have an issue. And I do know these mini Chicago screws, I'd have to think about the price. They are like 60 cents a set. So that is a lot more expensive than these. I think these were 100 sets for like $3. So, I mean, there's a big difference. But, when it comes down to something like this, I think that this tool belt thing here for the gentleman, I think it'll last him his lifetime, would be my guess, as long as there's, not a change in what he wants to carry and it doesn't fit in here. I don't see why this thing would ever wear out. So I guess where I'm going with that is I just feel better about using a Chicago screw, and I think the size of it's going to look good in there as well. So that's the direction I'm going to go, and I'm just looking here to see, do I need the 1/4 inch or the 3/16? I think the 3/16. The 1/4 is a little bit tall, and I don't think it'll snug up, and I'd rather have it snug and doing its job there. So let's get these out of here, and we'll go ahead and put those in. But I had a few people asking me, hey, what'd you decide? What are you going to use? So I wanted to do a little wrap up there. There we go. I had someone suggest, and this may not be exactly what they were saying, but these loops are a little bit big, and I talked about taking them off and redoing them, and they suggested adding more stitches to shorten it up, and that's what I think I'm going to do here. I think this is what they meant. They may have meant on this side over here as well. But I thought if I did it here in the center, it would push it away from this finger relief here on the bottom of the knife to push that up. Shorten the loop up a little bit. I think that'll work. Well, there you go. I think those Chicago screws really look nice. I trimmed off the threads back to the heads of the Chicago screws. That'll help hold the thread in place. They're small enough that they work, I think, without you know, encroaching on these other areas and tightening those up too tight. The color, I think, works really nice. That's one of the things I like about the buckle, guys. I can buy matching hardware here, and I've had good luck with the hardware. I think it's a quality hardware, but I'll get that out in the mail. And this has inspired me. I've started sketching out, trying to write down a little bit of notes each day on what needs to go in my my tool belt for myself, so that hopefully I can make it once and it works for me. Well, I appreciate you being here today. A little bit of a question answer thing, and I know some of you wanted to see the finished deal there. There's that, and then here is the belt, and I think the belt turned out really nice as well. I'm gonna wrap up there. I appreciate you taking time to be with this shop today. Please like, share, and subscribe, but more importantly, I do hope you have a great day.